And we need to bring new skill set in the business that understand economics, politics, socio-economic issues. This thing that poverty causes crime or social unrest, you just need to go to India and you'll see there is no correlation. But we need to start understanding that. So from a training point of view, from the skill set that we need, those are the sort of things that I think the industry is going to need. I don't think Sazria is unique in that regard. You look at the impact that climate change is having in globally. We're seeing more frequency and more severity in that particular space, which means we need to start valuing what climatologists are telling us. We need to start valuing, for instance, what the health sector is telling us insofar as pandemics is concerned. So insurance brings about all these skill sets that are necessary. The company, so how did we manage to pay the claims if we only had 16.5 billion? We had to go to the taxpayer, the South African government, and said, please give us some of the money back. And they gave us 22 billion rands. The 22 billion rands was to recapitalize the company and pay the claims and so on. And we did some other exciting things, some painful things as well, to make sure that the company turns around. We increased premiums, we focus on how we handle claims, we reduced our costs and so on. So it's been, when Susanelle was reading my CV on turnaround, I enjoyed doing turnarounds. Do you know the reason? It's much more easier to get people to say yes, because the thing is burning. So, if I say, guys, for it to fix this, we need to do this. There's not a lot of debate and discussion. It's yes, go, and let's do it. Whereas if you are trying to change something that is successful, there'll be people who say, why change it if it's this and that? So it's actually not very difficult to do a turnaround if you've got some clue of what you are doing. So what I always tell the Minister of Finance, though, he says, Bumi, the reason that you've managed to turn around the company is because I gave you 22 billion rand. I said, but Minister, you simply gave us what we gave you. Sazria over the years had contributed to the fiscus an amount of 16 billion rands. Now, the way the apartheid government had set up Sazria, it was such that it must not pay a dividend, it must not pay a tax. It must keep its reserves and be self-sustaining. If, when we acquired democracy, that happened, Sazria would have been able to meet those claims without government assistance or taxpayers' money. So that is basically the point that we were making to the minister. And it's quite important to say that. Now, what happened in July 2021? Well, it's alleged. I have to use that. I'm a government employee. My words matter. It's alleged that when our former president was detained, many people started to protest. So he went to jail, and in a particular day in July, various people started protesting in the name of our former president. Now, where it started is somewhere near Balito, in the off-ramp there. Some people started burning tires. And then what followed, which is another story about why certain areas have got more claims than others. The reason that I'm going through these case studies is so that you can see, one, the role we play as insurance in the industry, and also the skills that we're going to need in future. So it started in Balito. Then the trucking industry followed. Guess which toll gate did it start? It was in Moy River. You can go back in Sazria's history, you'll find that there are 4 other incidents that have started in Moy River. And the question is, why that particular community? So we've commissioned a research to say, okay, let's go into that community and understand exactly what's going on, so that maybe there is an intervention we can do to say, guys, you can protest, but when you do, please don't destroy infrastructure. So we are busy with that particular thing. And in terms of claims amounts, there was really an 80-20 split. 80% of the claims we paid was in KwaZulu-Natal for obvious reasons, and 20% was in Gauteng. Now, when I meet, reinsurers, global ones who provide us with reinsurance capacity, they say South Africa is a disaster waiting to happen. And my story to them is as follows. There are 9 provinces in South Africa. 9. It was only in 2. 7 provinces said we are not going to participate in that. So I choose to select those 7. It means we're not really, yes, we are experiencing some challenges, but though 7 provinces didn't participate. Actually, others said, if you start this nonsense, we will react. It's not going to happen. So that's a good thing. The second thing that was actually quite good about this particular event, it shows how South Africans respond to challenges. That diagram shows you the 9-10 days over which the protest happened. You can see that on the 4th day, that's when we had the highest amount of claims. The significance of that is this. It's all now common cause that we know that the security cluster didn't respond. If the security cluster had responded in the usual fashion that they do, those losses will have stopped in day 4. And what you see after day 4 wouldn't have happened. We know that the president, on the 5th day, he deployed the army, and the army went to the wrong places. They went to protect national key institutions where there was nothing happening, instead of going to where the protests were going on. They were redirected the following day, and we started to see a significant in the claims. But here is another beautiful story. We can speak about the failure of the security cluster, which is a well-established fact, but this is also communities that stopped things going further. It was the taxi industry, in particular in Pietermaritzburg, and in Soweto. You saw the communities in Soweto taking matters into their own hands. So what it means for a company like ours, we need to have a formal way in which we engage communities. And we need to start looking at insurance far much more differently. I mean, when Sister Tokozile, who's going to speak later on, was at SASRIA, she was responsible for stakeholder management. Now we've recognized that communities are key stakeholders in our environment. And as SASRIA now, I have to find skills to say, how are we going to start engaging with those particular communities? And also, how do I engage with the taxi industry? Because there is this love and hate relationship. Sometimes we love the taxi industry, and sometimes we hate them. That's a genuine fact. So in this time, they were cause for good, and the question is, how do we work with them? So those are the sort of things that are top of my agenda. That's the distraction that happened, and I'm gonna really start going fast. Business like, I was explaining to one of the choir singers what I do, and so on. And so he says, "Who are you? What do you do? What are you here for?" I said, "Oh no, I work for a company called SASRIA. I know I'm gonna speak just now." Then he went to Google SASRIA, it comes up with a website. And he made a very good observation. He said, "Oh, no. Oh, you cover things that really happen."
Sure.
Which was quite a good observation. SASRIA has got low frequency, but high severity. So when the royal whatever hits the fan, the amount is back. But generally, the frequency is low. So also, I'm fortunate I've come now after a significant event. It means I'm going to have another 6 years or so before another huge event happens. Please don't quote me if I've got it wrong. But generally, though, over those 6-7 years, we need to start building reserves so that when that one happens again, we will be ready. But it's not just the reserves, though. It is making sure that we've got the skills, the people will be able to respond. So what we've done within SASRIA, we've started an initiative with vets where we're training our middle managers on insurance. So they get to understand it, they get to appreciate it. And if we were to have another event, even if you are not working in claims, over those days will move a number of people, they go and do claims. So we have got that initiative with vets and another company, and Professor Vivian and his team designed a course that is specific to SASIA for us to be able to understand. So that's what some of the things that I have sort of instituted to turn around the business of SASIA. This continues to show you the distraction. Here is the sad thing about us and all of that. We talk a lot about what property was damaged. 350 lost their lives. Children lost their mothers. Mothers lost their children. It need not be like that. And I think as an industry, we need to start saying, how do we mitigate that? How do we teach South Africans that when you protest, can we have less loss? In fact, zero loss of life. So it was quite interesting. If I was interviewed on 702 about, about the EFF march. How many of you remember it? I think it was in March 20th or March 2021. Now look at how that march was handled. I'm not commenting about the political aspects of it. I'm commenting about the maturity with which the security system functioned and also the marchers functioned. Forget the rhetoric that was said before that. There was a lot of work behind the scenes to ensure that that event doesn't turn out ugly. A lot of expectations, just like we had in April, 1994, where people thought that South Africa is going to implode. A lot of things happened behind the scenes. As SASRIA, we started providing the data to the South African Police Service to say, when a claim like this happens, these are the areas where you are likely to have problems. That's what SASRIA's role was. The business sector, the retailers, every day they collect data as to where the likely protest is going to happen. Because why? Every morning they have to deliver bread and milk to those communities. So we are starting to integrate that data and see how we can predict the future. So the SAPS, the military, were strategically deployed because of all that intelligence that was coming from the private sector. So that's another area that we need to do. The biggest impact in July of 2021, it's really the number of jobs that were lost. It has consequences on people's lives. And as an industry, by paying the claims, we make sure that less people lose their jobs, but some did. So when we pay a claim, fix your car, there's a panel shop that is benefiting. We replace your TV because it got hit by load shedding and lightning strikes and so on. There is someone else who's benefiting. So the industry basically plays a significant role, and it preserves jobs. Without it, a significant number of jobs would have been lost forever. I mean, a sad story. So when I started in the job, I was taken to KZN and I started to see all the damaged areas to try and see how we can speed up the payment of the claims. There was one factory that used to assemble TVs, South Korean TVs, Samsung. It employed 1,800 people. Samsung said, we are not coming back. 1,800 people lost their jobs forever. Where are we? SASRIA now, we're back to solvency. We are actually, it's an amazing story in that, in a year, we've been able to fully recover. We are stronger than we were before July 2021. We are currently sitting with our own funds of 12.1 billion rands. That's where we are sitting. We've restored our solvency. And we're going to report a good profit number when we publish our financial statements. But it's still a long while. So in the interactions I'm having with the Treasury, I'm saying, now that we know we've had an event that is 30 billion rand, can you let us accumulate funds so that we can get to 30 billion? Don't take any dividends. You can still take tax. But then I've got an assessed tax loss of 23.5 billion. So it's going to be a while before I pay a significant amount of tax. But don't take any dividends until we get to 30 billion. Now you can imagine what's going to happen to Sazria when it gets to 30 billion. Profits from investment income alone can start funding some of the challenges that we are having as South Africans. The one thing that keeps me awake at night is youth unemployment, which is currently sitting at above 55%. I had one of the professors as I was coming in, and Professor JJ was asking me the question. He said, I don't know if it was you, MC, or him, he said, we must stop saying, we think this is what we think. We must start doing. The challenge with youth unemployment is that in every business strategy, they will say the biggest threat to South Africa is youth unemployment. But very rarely do we start speaking about the solutions that are required to deal with that. And as Sazria was saying, we need to do that. Let's set aside funds to either assist in education, which we are doing a lot of, which we are going to do a lot more of it. And maybe, should Treasury agree, we start going into funding of youth business. So these are some of the ideas. So we're going to use the 30 billion for good. And of course, should a claim arise, then we'll pay our insured clients. Colleagues, I can speak and speak and speak. Someone needs to indicate how much time I have left. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Then I will speed up. Give me 10, and then I'll speed up. So I'm a good negotiator as well. I can sell insurance. We've learned certain lessons that I think we've all have all covered, and I will not go into that into great detail. But really, the challenge for South Africa is how do you create resilience in the economy, and that's what insurance does. It makes, if you were to look, for instance, in incidences globally where there has been a significant event, where you've got a formal insurance environment, those countries recover faster than those who do not. Compare an earthquake in Turkey and one in Haiti, for instance. You will see Haiti still battling. The sad thing, though, about South Africa is this. What tends to happen is that the poor, the rich, all of us here in this room, recover quickly. But poor South Africans, if you remember the flooding we had in KwaZulu-Natal, some still don't have homes. Now the challenge that we have as an industry is how do we make insurance accessible to those people? And this is another area that Sazria is working on. Our reinsurance cost has gone up significantly by about 600%. And the world is in a tight spot. And because the world is in a tight spot, reinsurers are increasing their pricing. And we are working now with Treasury to say, how do you offer a local solution for the reinsurance industry? So I'm really summing up so that you can, in conclusion, just like July 1976 and so on, July 2021 highlighted why insurance is needed and what role it plays. The other difference between July 2021 and 1976, July 2021 didn't stop in the townships. It went a little bit further. The next event could be in the heart of Sandton. Didn't get there, it could be. So we need to start finding solutions to avert that. As Sazria, we are well positioned to broaden our insurance offering, and we are looking at various options that will make South Africa a much more sustainable country and much more resilient. And also, the last part maybe I want to conclude with is a statement that we are really trying to find ways how we can speed up assistance to the poor. Currently, whom does South Africa depend on when there is a major disaster? You guys want any guess? I mean, we know him. Says we met him. Yeah. Gift of the givers. We need to build more gift of the givers. And Sazria would like to pay that part where it can make South African government reach South Africans quicker when there is a major disaster. I would like to finish off with the video. I don't know whether it's ready now. You can play it, and then I will take any questions if there are any. Thank you very much.
The Bridge City Mall, built in 2009, serves the communities of the sprawling settlements of KwaMashu, Inanda, and Phoenix. Targeted by looters, damage to the two-level mall was significant, but was confined to the internal structures. There was no structural damage. All 110 stores in the mall were looted and suffered major damage in the civil riots. The center has now undergone complete renovations paid for with a 700 million rand insurance claim. The owners of the mall say a total number of 95 shops, including retailers, banks, and eateries, have returned. They've also beefed up security measures.
We have redesigned the shopping center to some extent to improve the security in terms of locking down the center when riots happen again. But we've also realized that having a good, strong security company in place can make a difference as well.
The city says despite the reputational damage suffered, investors are returning because stability has been restored.
Firstly, the taste of businesses and investors is that there must be stability in the area where they need to invest, of which the incident that happened in 2021, now we are stable as a city, but also there must be resources, infrastructure in particular, water, electricity, adequate water and electricity, and infrastructure, the proximity to the people, because the market is created by people who reside along that development.
Local shoppers say they've suffered greatly and they've learned valuable lessons. He says he is making a clarion call to all the investors to come and invest at KwaMashu because he's still seeing a few businesses that have not yet returned.
There are so many youth who are sitting at home and they are actually struggling and regretting due to the fact that obviously the looting has cost us so much. Even the economy, this will be something that will actually benefit the economy.
About 1.4 million shoppers used to frequent this center monthly before the unrest broke out. It's hoped that the newly renovated mall can improve on these numbers. Vusi Kumalo, SABC News, Durban.
So, 3 takeaways from that video. The first one is 40% of small businesses. 40% of businesses, small businesses, strangely enough, that are in the malls have got no insurance. Opportunity for growth. Those are the ones that didn't come back. So that is the one takeaway. The second takeaway, which we don't get an honorable mention, we paid the 700 million rands. Without that 700 million rands, that mall wouldn't have been rebuilt. And number 3, now people, instead of spending extra money to go and buy whatever they need to buy, they can walk back. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You've been too kind, and I'll take any questions. Professor, did you? Okay, thank you. So I've been that clear.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll allow, if there's any, just 1 or 2 remarks or comment. Anybody? 1, 2, okay. Please, can we get a mic over there? Just a short remark, and then I'm going to request my panel number 3 to already come through and be ready on the stage.
Thank you. My name is Retabile Mashala. I'm from PwC. I don't know, maybe it's a question. You did mention around building your capital or requiring a bit more time to build your capital and reduce your dividend payouts in the next few years, but also just touched on reaching those in the informal communities or the ones that do not have access to insurance. My question, I think, it's around really what are some of those active plans that are ongoing while we're working towards the 30 billion, while we're working towards accumulating the funds? What are some of those current plans to take the education, the insurance education to those rural communities? And also, does Sasria consider or will it ever consider offering insurance directly to individuals, not through insurers, as an additional cover? Like, so I think my point is around affordability. I mean, if I don't own a car, I don't even know there is such cover for natural disasters. So are there any plans from Sasria's perspective in the next few years to go directly to the communities without going through the insurers? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. There was another hand over there. Can I have a micro? Oh, you have a mic, all right. So,
JJ, my name is Hussein Rasul. I have a photograph with you, and that's my claim to fame. I'll meet you in Durban one of the days. Take you for a bunny chow. But JJ, you know what? I don't think we really need obviously, we have more gift of the givers. That is good. We have thousands of gift of the givers in every community. What we need is 257 strong municipalities that can provide services to local people and deal with disasters. What is most disturbing is that every time there's a disaster in the country, the first people on the scene and the only sometimes is gift of the givers. So where is the local municipality for which we pay taxes? So we really need to deal with augmenting and strengthening the local municipalities, because communities and businesses reside in the local municipalities. They do not reside in gift of the givers headquarters in Pietermaritzburg.
okay, thank you. Brief response, please.
Yeah, it's 1, 2. 1, 1, 2. Yes. Let me start with the last question. Yes, you make a valid point. And one of the initiatives we have within Sasria, a couple of things. One, we're going to start introducing municipal awards where we're going to recognize municipalities that are doing a good job. That's the first one. The second one is that when the mayor made those comments, I actually reminded him that it's his job to provide that infrastructure. And I said, when he fails, we are the one we have to pay, because we do ensure service delivery protest as well. So that was the second. The third thing, which I think is more systematic in solving the problem, business organizations like SAPOA, South African Property Organization Association, Consumer Goods Council, and Sasria. What we are doing, we are working with municipalities in designing and crafting their integrated municipal plans. And if something is not in that integrated business plan for the municipality, and then the municipality fails to do it, then you can find mechanisms to hold them accountable. So that is what is within our realm of influence, and so on. But coming back to your question, it's as Sasria, we are already doing a lot of consumer education. So we go into the various radio stations with the South African Broadcasting Corporation, where we send out specialists and we fund that program for them to reach out to those communities. Umhlobo wenene, Phala Phala, etc., etc. But that's not enough. The second your question is, will Sasria sell to other things? For the informal settlement, informal sector, let me use that word, the key challenge is your distribution costs. Your distribution costs, just a Sasria premium for umama who's selling vegetables, and when the municipal workers protest and they trashed her store with 3,000 of goods, will be about 15 rands a month. The cost of collecting that debit order is about 5 rand. So, and then so no one is willing to sell, and the cost is just too high. We are betting on, you will have seen banks have, beginning of the year, where they were saying now you can start using your phone to pay and distribute. So one of the things we are looking at, but I can tell you it's still early stages. We are seeing some technologies where you sell via WhatsApp and also collect the money via the phone. So that could be the solution to that problem. But as things stand right now, it's difficult for Sasria to get there. On the top end of the market, large corporates, fun enough, we are able to go direct, not go to insurance companies, and that's something that is under consideration. But in the bottom end, because you need to volumes and so on, the cost is just not able to get us there. But you can ask me the question in a year's time. If I haven't moved, then you can punish me. You can hold me accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. That was very informative indeed. And all the best with the work that you're doing. All right. We're going to our panel 3 now. We're about 15 minutes late, but we'll catch up. I'm quite sure that the panel will help you to condense whatever they have to say. Umla Pai is from the financial sector. Financial sector. All right. And then Ms. Kerisha Singh, okay, from also Financial Sector Authority. Conduct Authority, yes. Very strict with a lot of people. Ms. Lelani Bezaden-Holt, not from the FBI, but FBI.
Yes.
Yeah. She made it clear that it's not the FBI. And then Professor Robert Vivian, who's a super engineer. That's what it says on the profile. Top super engineer. A body of knowledge, that's what we're talking about, in relation to how that body of knowledge links to transformation of the sector. I'm quite curious about whether or not the sector is transformed, and I'm not even sure. You wonder what I was going to ask you. I was not even sure whether was there ever a BEE charter on this particular sector at all. Just weigh into that transformation. Would you think it's something that is done reluctantly or that is happening at all in that sector? Frankly, a white-dominated industry. I'm not aware of too many black-owned insurance companies. The few we know, the Reserve Bank has put them on curatorship for months on end and liquidates them from time to time. But that's politics. You don't have to deal with that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Your view?
Yeah. Thanks, JJ, for the question, and afternoon to the audience. I would just want to contextualize the question first. I represent the Financial Sector Transformation Council, which is a statutory body that has been established since 2004. And it's got a unique mandate aimed at measuring and driving transformation within the sector. There's various parties to the code itself. You asked about whether there's an existence of the code or not. Yeah. Yes, the code has been there since 2004, and various amendments have been considered. We actually looking at its further amendment since 2017. So it's aimed at ensuring that there's issues of inequality are addressed within the sector itself, issues around creation of employment and contribution to job creation are also addressed within the sector itself. To your question on whether there's been a transformation within the sector, to date, the sector with its parties has published 9 reports. We recently published our 9th iteration on the 14th of September. And the indication is that the sector continues to underperform across all the elements that have been identified, including ownership, management control, skills development, and the unique elements that have been designed for the sector itself on empowerment financing, as well as access to financial services. The CEO, Sasria, was talking to that earlier. So there are pockets of progress on some elements. For instance, our ability and capacity to take up positions as it pertains to representations at board levels. There's been improvement on such areas. And we believe that given time, the entities will fully commit to those,
Overall, it's
to
poor.
those elements.
The transformation is poor in the financial sector. And part of it, and I want your comment on this, was that you set a low target to start with. Many charters, there's 25% to black people, whatever. These ones, they say 10% to black people. I mean, and you don't even meet that target, low as it is. What is the problem? Is it because there's a reluctance, a political reluctance to change the financial sector to a point where, first of all, we had a low target. Second, you even fail to meet that low target. We're not going to change this economy because you need that financial sector to even change the others. So the others say, oh, 25% must go to black people. Those black people go to the banks to ask for money to buy the businesses there. And if that sector is untransformed, it means the rest of the economy were far from transforming. Your view?
The fundamental challenges that are encountered by the sector, and I don't think it's only the sector, it's the manner in which BE on its own is crafted, it being a voluntary dispensation and lacking enforcement measures. And there is a guiding framework for the sector itself that is pursuing towards achieving its targets. But without specific measures in place, without having the legislators themselves having a grip over the legislation that has been put. So that's why I'm saying there are fundamental challenges with the framework there. So it requires for us to go back to the drawing board, which is part of what we are doing with the current review amongst the partners to the charter itself, and engaging with the lawmakers itself, because there's been various recommendations that have been put in place to ensure that what had been lost during 2017 with the amended code gets fully integrated. And the other issue that we have to keep and bear in mind is the complexity of the sector. That's what brings the challenges to the fore. How complex and how the sector has evolved. And today we talk about digitization. For instance, if you look at access to financial services, how it was conceptualized at the time, it was about creating service points where the transport nodes are. But that is no longer, I wouldn't say appropriate, because other people don't have access to digital tools. They still use that. But how do you equate that to digital tool, me transacting at home and translating that to access to financial services? So there's various sectors.
Okay.
I also think that recently we had the summit on NEDLEC, on the crisis that is that NEDLEC is encountering.
just
And
dissolve NEDLEC.
organizations
Don't you think so?
such as this, they also suffer the same, because the decision-making model that is based on consensus. So it's one of the challenges that the sector is
Not too
grappling with.
useful, I'm afraid. That's why we're still where we are. But I hear the detail you're talking about, but summary from what you're saying, lack of political will to transform the sector, low target, poor implementation, poor overseeing of even the low target to reach it. I don't feel too hopeful, but I'll give you
I
another
think
bite.
what you have left out is the policy coherence, because
Yes.
as the economy evolves, there's a number of policies that come to the fore. And how do we integrate and make transformation a common thread along those sectors? Somebody can talk about, I had, if I had the CEO correctly, about us ensuring that there's increased number of players. But if you look at whether the market is because ready for that, or the market is concentrated, how do we bring that to the policy? How do we consolidate and ensure that offer services that will service our economy.
Yeah, the financial sector will never be ready for change at this rate. I'm
So you
afraid.
say, JJ.
Prof, please tell me, in terms of this body of knowledge, there's something that can point to even a willingness to change. Because, I hear this thing about, oh, it's a complex sector. Yes, it's complex. And part of why it remains complex is that we're not simplifying it so that there's more participation. Your view there?
I think it is an incredibly complex market. You can't change that from complex, but you can succeed, as you saw Sasria succeed. What Sasria did, 31 billion claims is half the total claims paid by one company in a couple of weeks. I mean, that's fantastic. So the body of knowledge is concerned about not simplifying the complexity, but mastering the complexity. That you can be able to solve those problems because you know what you're doing, as Sasria knows what it's doing. It was a fantastic talk, by the way. Give another clap.
Yeah.
So the body of knowledge is really aimed at trying to make people professional at what they're doing in the insurance industry.
Yeah.
And it then means we can overcome the complexity and solve it, but we can't get rid of the complexity and we can't simplify the complexity.
Why?
Well, I think you've already been, the CEO has already told you, vast percentage of the money that's both, the 2001 was a fantastic year as far as insurance is concerned. First of all, massive amounts of inflow from overseas reinsurers on the Sasria complaint. Twice that amount on the COVID complaint, at 31 billion rand. So we are linked to the international community through a very complex system. And that system will not be made simple because we want it simple. So our problem is to become professional at what we are doing. So what we want to do is transform the market by making very professional people who can master that.
Can you please simplify this for me? So the rest of the economy has to change. There's no option about it. The trouble is we've made it an option, right? So you've got companies that are lily white in their board. Literally, they look like they're from Europe. The JSE is owned only 3% by black people and women. After 30 years of democracy, so clearly there's no willingness to change there unless we put some hard screws and maybe carrots and sticks to make it move. Now, that's what I want you to address to me. Do you think it's idealistic to think that we're going to change this so-called complex financial sector to be inclusive? Because the trouble is that if we don't have an inclusive economic growth, there's not going to be growth at all.
No, but I mean, you're looking at the board. I think you should look at the total complexity, the total components within the company. I mean, at Wits University, I would say 95% of my students are not white. So I can't transform more than that. So you're just looking at the board level and maybe a few other levels, but look at the whole thing. And then the idea is within that transformation is to make sure people are extremely competent at what they do.
Yeah.
South Africa has always had a world-class insurance. Sasria, just to use Sasria again, is a world-class example. The rest of the world have not been able to do that. So we have led the market technically for decades. We don't want to lose that edge. So the body of knowledge project is to make sure we get the technical knowledge to people who are using it every day. So it's not the actuaries and the professional person, it's the entire market. Figure we already got 100,000 people employed in the market. So we want to have a professionally qualified market, not as which normally happen in the professions. You've got maybe one lawyer in a firm. We want everybody to be qualified. And that's what the body of knowledge project is trying to achieve. So it's a transformation.
What is the link to transformation? Because you seem to be emphasizing the professionalism, etc. That's fine. It's not supposed to be a contradiction to transformation. So you could have a wonderful professional setup of an untransformed workforce. That's not going to help you eventually to transform the economy, because the contribution to the GDP of the insurance sector is huge. So it can't be left alone just to be, only concerned about competence in a box, but not transformation. No, don't touch that. Am I missing a link here?
No, I think missing the link, because I think you're looking at a board and saying the board is white, which I wouldn't know. I don't look at the boards. not the workforce. The
But
workforce
the
is not
workforce is also white. According
There's
to the
no
latest
white.
report, 70% of all appointments, new appointments and new promotions in South Africa have been to white people. 70% after 30 years, not a recent report, not me. It's KPMG plus the Department of Labor in a 10-year period of the same report.
Well, I don't see those figures because 80 or 90% of the graduates of it are now black, not white.
Yeah, they don't have jobs after that. What's the point? You
So
have
we-
got graduates who don't have jobs who are sitting around, Prof. Okay, I'll come back to you again for another bite. What's your view? Transformation. Can you just address me on
Yes.
transformation of this sector?
I just want to check that this, yeah, it is on. So I'm from the Financial Sector
Yeah.
Conduct Authority. We are trying to improve and strengthen the role that the conduct regulator is playing in the transformation landscape. I think there's a very important role for us to play when it comes to information or body of knowledge as it relates to transformation. I knew this was going to be a very interesting panel discussion with you moderating, Professor Tabani, on this topic. Because I think a lot of what drives some of the discussion and debate on this topic is a lack of proper information. So you were talking and with my colleague Pumla about the perceptions that the sector is massively untransformed. I was going through, and it's not the latest report that the FSTC released, but one just before that, and looking through the BE levels of the top life and non-life insurance companies in South Africa. We've got a very concentrated financial sector. So the top 4 or 5 companies often account for something like 80% of the market. The majority of them are level 1 BEE rated, level 1. You can't get higher than that. The problem is if we don't agree that level 1 means that you're transformed, we don't agree on what transformation is. And that is an issue, I think, as Pumla was talking about, that goes back to this idea of policy coherence. What is it that we're wanting to measure? You've spoken about ownership, you've spoken about management. Those are 2 out of 8 elements of the financial sector code that sets targets. I have to say I agree with you that I feel that those targets are too low. They're low, and even when there is non-performance against those targets, you can hide that because there are 8 other elements and the elements that you can perform strongly in. What the FSCA is wanting to do is play a stronger role in oversight of those transformation plans. So the code remains set by the Transformation Council. The targets are set by consensus amongst different constituencies. What the FSCA is wanting to engage financial institutions on are what are you doing in relation to those targets and how are you showing forward progress and forward movement? And I think from that, we'll be able to have a much clearer picture. What does ownership actually look like? Where are their weaknesses? Where should we be focusing on? The financial sector code is good, it's necessary, it's really complicated to understand. And I think that complexity often allows a lot of devil to be lost in the detail when it comes to transformation. So that's the role that the FSCA sees itself playing
Okay.
over the longer term.
No, absolutely. There's a lot of maneuvering by business. Let's not fool ourselves. Maneuvering by business, you find that, you arrive at a company, they say they're level 1, you wonder what level 1 where? Because when you look at those elements, that are the actual transformation, right? Procurement. They are procuring from people who have been procuring from since the 1960s. They don't invest in community. They don't spend the 3%, paltry as it is already, on skills development. But they've got a nice board, nice shareholder, like the prof was saying, right? That's why there was an introduction of what was called broad-based BEE, to exactly avoid people saying, oh, I'm level 1, but please don't touch my ownership, or please don't touch my procurement, right? So I think that, and the financial sector are the ones, because they are auditors are in there, and so you are the ones who will be able to cut through that clutter. If a person comes there and says level 1, we say, all right, fine, thank you for your level. Can you tell us your transformation strategy? How are you impacting on society? How are you moving the needle in terms of economic development? Where are your investments? Where do you invest? Do you invest in communities? Where, that kind of thing. So I think I'm happy you raised that, and I hope that your institution is gonna look at that in detail. Same with the issue about, there's no management or whatever, there's no oversight. There's a BE commission. I'm not sure what the commissioner does. I know that he's there temporarily, or at least he thinks so. You know, they put him there, they say, no, sit there and monitor. Nobody's monitoring. When last did you hear a BE report of companies in the financial sector, a full report that says this company, and I'm not talking about a generic report, saying that company is not compliant. This is the last time. It was when Jimmy Man was still Jimmy. I mean, Mzwanele Man was still Jimmy. He was the chairperson of something called the Employment Equity Commission. Every year he used to release a report that says that company and point people and name and shame. We don't do that. That's why people think it's no longer important. Lalela, please help me understand.
Sure.
And take us back to your topic. Body of knowledge vis-a-vis
I'll take us back.
transformation. Help me, please.
Thank you, Professor. So first and foremost, welcome to the Transformation Council and the Conduct Authority.
Yeah.
And I want to compliment both of them.
Yeah.
Because if we look at Unati Kamlana's transformation strategy that he did bring out for public comment,
Yeah.
we all had an opportunity to comment, and I
Yeah.
hope everybody did. And I do know that the Transformation Council and the Conduct Authority are working together
Yeah.
in terms of understanding, first and foremost, the data. So let's then bring it back to the body of knowledge. So the question is the body of knowledge helping with transformation?
Yeah.
Now, if I may say, there's more than one form of transformation. So yes, transformation in terms of the triple B scorecards.
Yeah.
But we have spoken today also about regulatory transformation.
Yes.
We do know that the Conduct of Financial Institution Bill is coming soon. And within the COFI Bill, there's a whole chapter that talks about transformation. We have not seen that in any drafted legislation before. So again, well done to National Treasury. This goes all the way back to when Twin Peaks came out after the subprime crisis, where we want to stabilize our country and make sure something like that doesn't happen. So it's come back from those days where COFI is in Parliament, or well, it's still with National Treasury, hoping to see it this year in Parliament. And there's a whole section in transformation there as well. Then bringing it back to the body of knowledge. Now, from the Conduct Authority point of view, they have issued what they call the fit and proper requirements. Now, we touched on that a little bit today. Now, the fit and proper requirements is very important because if I look at just some of the stats that's in Mornay Oosthuizen's skills plan for Inseta, I'll quote the stats. 98% of those financial services providers who submitted their work skills plan, 98% has NQ of 4 or higher. Now, that is fantastic because it shows you that what came in from the FSB back then, now the Conduct Authority, where they insisted World Soccer Cup time 2020 to say, now you must have a full qualification. It's only since 2010 that we had to move away from, the phase credits. It's now full qualifications. Let me tell you, there's some countries like Australia is only now implementing, by the way, you need to have a full qualification. So South Africa, kudos, you are miles ahead of some of what's going on globally. So another stat, if you look at that, I'm a bit worried if you look at, the mentorship to upskill the young people. Yeah. Then if we also look at a very statistic, 60% of those are female in the financial services sector. So there's been movement, but there is a concern, if we look at, Mornay does say in the sector skills plan that African is dominating the sector. So that is in the report. But where the concern comes in is it's underrepresented within the more highly skilled occupations. So that is where we need to hone in. So let's then go back again to the body of knowledge. And is that body of knowledge a barrier to entry or is it not? It's not a barrier of entry because remember, we've got as consumer at the end of the day, we know that we've been dealing with unscrupulous property syndications, Ponzi schemes, etc. So we had to lift the skill set of the financial advisor, the broker, out in the industry up. So the body of knowledge is critically important to make sure that we do have transformation, but not just transformation in terms of triple BE, but transformation in terms of moving into the COFI environment, but also transformation into the digital world. How are we getting businesses ready? And our body of knowledges, is it agile enough to actually incorporate? How do we transform our businesses to incorporate AI, financial planning technology? Because the businesses who's not going to embrace AI and financial planning technology will be dead in less than 24 months.
So I think that the big idea, there's a transformation is across the board. It's not just on those elements of BEE.
Indeed, Professor.
But it has to be a matrix which cuts across.
Indeed.
So for example, if you transform a board, but they all can't read their board packs.
Problem.
So it's not transformation. They come there, they open the board pack at the meeting, right? Then maybe you must send it to them on WhatsApp. Then you got the chance of them reading it, and so it goes. Skills, when you bring in new people, the old ones who've been there say, oh, don't bother us with new technology, right? And then you then have a disjuncture. Same, you can go to all the elements. That's what I'm saying. It has to be a matrix of transformation and not just looking at it in a linear way. Prof, your last word before I go to the audience.
No, I was going to say, when you appoint a new board, you give them part of the body of knowledge so they'll know what to read. So not only will I
Good
open,
luck with them reading that, because if they don't read their own board packs, they are unlikely to read another big, long research.
No, help them to interpret what's in the board pack so they can make the right decision. That's the point.
Yeah. It's a big challenge, because the whole movement of transformation started wrong by just looking at ownership only and stopping there. And so people populate there, people who just come to meetings, they just drink tea and are half asleep. And then they're not aware that there's no transformation happening below them. And that's part of the problem, that if you don't fix the leadership at the top, you can forget about transforming all the other elements, right? But if you go now to the overall element of change in the financial sector, now particularly in the insurance sector, would you, from what you know, say to me the insurance sector is transforming?
Definitely.
In one sentence.
Definitely transforming.
Transforming,
But
not transformed.
But what we would like to make sure is when they are transformed, they are technically competent, because it's a very complex
Why do you
industry.
think there's a dichotomy between transformation and competence? Can you educate me? Why do you think there's a dichotomy?
No, I don't. What I'm saying is we want to make sure the market is technically competent, transformed or not.
I see. That they are technically competent even if they are not transformed.
So
you're saying when you transform them, you must keep their competence. Is that what you are saying?
And when they are transformed and they're in a position, they are competent in the position they're in. So it's to make sure the competence is there.
Yeah. But if they are competent and not transformed, their competence will not eventually mean much for the inclusiveness of the economy. That's the issue.
Yeah, but the other way,
I have a problem with.
The other way is going to be worse. If you're transformed but incompetent, then you have a problem.
I give up. All right, I'll leave it there. Okay, let's hear. Okay, please take out your piece of paper quickly.
Thank you.
And write panel number 3. Give me one idea of the transformation, right, on how we can use the body of knowledge to transform the insurance sector. Just one idea. Right? I'm sure there'll be lots. Just write one. Okay, comment this side. Okay, let's start here. Can I have a microphone there? We're chasing time now to go to panel number 4. If you can mic the fourth panelist, please. In the meantime, yes, sir.
Thank you, JJ. It's really great to interact with you on this forum, and like just seeing you on TV. My name is George Paul De Lange. I run a cybersecurity company. And my friend asked me to please be here because of the impact of cybersecurity in the insurance industry.
Yeah.
And I will not particularly talk about the work we're doing with relation to a body of knowledge, and basically bringing that and our learnings from actual on the ground. So I think the issue that as a country that we need to address is the issue about foundational skills. If one has foundational skills in a subject, you can meaningfully participate in the development. My company, my 2 sons are ethical hackers, and we are currently training 1,000 ethical hackers on the continent.
Yeah.
And people wanted to know, how did I transform my 2 sons to be, and that is why we're making this accessible
Transform them
to
from being
others.
general hackers
Yes.
to ethical hackers.
Well, yes. So
Okay.
because we have to deal with these issues.
Yeah.
So the issue around this is that we find that graduates, people that have studied and come through the training and all that, there was one particular student that had a 90% in networking, as an example. And when we asked the lady to connect that computer to the network,
Yeah.
she just looked at us frozen.
She couldn't
Frozen.
connect it. Yeah.
So
But she
there's
got
a-
90%.
Yes,
in a
so it's
theory.
almost an appeal
Yeah.
that the CETAs actually focus on the foundational knowledge.
Yeah.
And actually understanding that foundational knowledge and actually have assessments around understanding it, because I believe our young people can solve the problems and our society can, but you can't sit on the table as a passenger. You need to have that foundational knowledge. And we are in the process of working, and I was invited. We don't interact on conferences as specialists. This was a complete new to me. But the main point I would like to say is that we need to come out with some outcomes of our training and our training interventions, so that we do not create a body of youth that is beggars. We cannot do that, JJ.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Please write that down on a piece of paper. The foundational knowledge. Write it in big letters and pass it on, because I don't want us to lose it in the report. Anybody here? Yes? Can we have the microphone?
Thank you very much. My name is Lebogang Watle. I'm representing Wits University as well. And I think I wish to clarify, to support what Prof. Vivian was talking about, and maybe your linking of the body of knowledge project with the issue of transformation as per topic that we are discussing. And I think you are both saying kind of the same thing, but to kind of clarify it goes to this gentleman's point that in the first place, you need the foundational knowledge. You need a body of knowledge. And one example that I'm surprised Prof. Vivian didn't use, that I always like when he uses it, is that in other industries, in other professions, there's always a body of knowledge going on. There is always, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer. There is that body of knowledge which will then be customized or remixed however way. And then because now we're in South Africa and transformation is important, and the transformation ideals of our country is something we have to focus on. Once the foundational body of knowledge is in place, it allows for things like, to live with the reality of today, digital literacy in there, sensitive, maybe, when people, I don't know what people do when they study things like medicine or whatever, but I'm sure there's modules there about how to be sensitive to, I don't know, community members, things that make that professional also sensitive to the customers that they'll be serving. And on top of it, understanding the kind of country we live in when you're going to relate to the customer or to the world out there. Once you have the foundation, my point is that once you have the foundational body of knowledge there, it allows for the flexibility.
What I don't like, right?
What you don't like.
What I don't like is the assumption that when you transform, you are necessarily diluting competence. That thing, I don't like it. Because there's no such a thing. He's just told me there are many graduates who live in vets, but they don't have jobs.
They don't have
and
jobs.
And then the company is going to appoint
not...
them because they think if they appoint black executives, etc., they are diluting the transformation. We need to crack that thing and take it out of our thinking.
Okay, so who must hire them? Who must hire them?
Companies must hire them. They train them, they give them bursaries, but they don't give them jobs.
So, exactly. So the root, you are right. So the root of the problem is transforming the body of knowledge speaks to the curriculum, the textbooks, the whatever. So you are, so you can't say, okay, let them be hired anyway and warm the seats. Any seater here will tell you the amount of interns and internship and trying to place the youth. All seaters are really.
But why is there such an implication?
No, but
when you change, you are hiring people who are going to warm the seats. There are many people whose skills who are without jobs.
Yes, we are.
understand? They are skilled, those
Let's
people.
talk about the body of knowledge in the
Yeah.
insurance industry.
Yes.
Right. You are correct. This is South Africa. The unemployment
Yeah.
rate is way too high.
Mm.
I'm saying that even with sectors who are, traditionally they've always had this curriculum, or they've always
Yeah.
had this body of knowledge, and there is still no space to find them placements at companies. However, for the insurance sector, it's even more difficult. So what you are saying,
Yeah.
let them graduate, put them in companies, but with what knowledge and with what skills, because that
Yeah.
is not transformed back there. So we need, number one, the body of knowledge
Yeah.
itself, and then
Transform
to
the
also-
curriculum as well.
and transform the curriculum as well, so that we have competent people running the insurance company,
Yeah.
and not hurry, they are there just being
Yeah.
hired because they are warming seats.
I need
and
to
whatever.
move on, but let me quickly.
Please don't JJ
quickly
Tabani me.
ask.
My mother's surname is Tabani, by the way. We are related. Please be kind.
Let me ask you: do you think there are lots of people out there who are skilled but without a job? Because it looks like when you say
yes,
to
but we
companies,
go into-
please transform. They say, "Oh, we can't find blacks." They say that, they tell you straight, "Well, we can't find blacks who are
But
competent."
people in this country are black. Where are you not fine? Look in the room.
Exactly.
Everybody's black.
Yeah, all right, all right.
Most of the people, except you, Prof. Vivian.
Thank you. He's also black. He
Yes.
just hasn't discovered it. All right. Any other comment? All right, I'm going to close. Okay.
Look, Prof, I'm tempted to comment on this subject. It's a subject which is sensitive. Sometimes we blame the people for not transforming. The problem is bigger than that. If the system of transformation is not enforcing the transformation, you are bound as a country to breed apologists. Because of the system. They get in, and then to the system, they're given a job of transformation. They realize, wow, this thing is bigger than me. Yeah. And then guess what they do? They enjoy the benefit. And then what you will do, all the time you will do the wrong thing. You will blame them unfairly.
Who the transformation champions?
The transformation champions. We've been doing that in this country for the past 30 years. I grew up in the private sector. I started to work in the public sector at board level, in all my life. I've been seeing this continuously. We're bringing them in, we say, go transform. They get into the system, they realize, no, the system is soft, it asks, and then it says to the person who's transformed, please transform. And when the person says no, it says, no, thank you, you said no. It does that. And then in this counter, that's what we've been doing. And when you look at our transformers, all of them at the high level, they've turned into apologists, not because they like. The system has forced them to do that.
Yeah, no, but I hear you what you're saying, but I think we need more activism, because we need people who can be brave enough to arrive in a system. And I'm not talking about unpractical things. I'm just there in an exco of a multi-billion rand company, and you are the only black person there. And then you close the door behind you. They tell you, no, we don't have money to hire more blacks. You say, oh, all right. Until you retire and go, and then there'll be zero. Yeah, no, I'm very frustrated by it, but I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to have to take two last comments, and then we go to panel number 4. Anybody this side? This side is depleting now. It's depleting. You are the last person to speak. Right.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. My name is Deepak Mohan from the TVET College. So I think one of the challenges also we have, transformation and skills development, I think it does go hand in hand. And the biggest challenge we have is that even if a graduate from the TVET sector or from university that comes out of a BCom degree or for a diploma in business, they don't meet the requirements that is entry level into insurance sector, for example, like the RE, I think a regulatory exam or something, you must have that exam passed before you even consider a career into insurance. So there has to be work done by the CETA, by the the colleges, the curriculum. There has to be a bit of transformation to prepare them. So you are able to holistically develop that learner to enter the labor market in the sector. Thank you.
Please give him a round of applause. All right, can I please have my panel number 4? Okay, I'm going to give just 2 of you to speak. Prof, your last word, please.
What can I say?
You don't have any last word? Famous last word,
wanna say
okay.
something?
Famous last word?
Hello?
Or is there somebody else who wants to talk?
Yes.
Well, closing
Yes,
now.
yes, Professor.
Okay, quickly.
Hello? Oh, hello? Okay. I mean,
Where's the person speak?
hello?
Yeah, okay, please go ahead.
Hello, Professor. My name is Solomon Sitimo. I'm an independent financial advisor. I have a problem with the FSCA, Financial Sector Conduct Authority.
Okay.
Yes, they intensified their regulations to financial advisors,
Yeah.
but they are not educating the market. Most of the problems that they encounter is from the market, from the consumers.
Yeah.
So I think they should start from school, maybe from high school, to educate the consumers of insurance. Because most of our people, especially Black people, we did not know about the insurance. And then I can say we're not even have a reason to have insurance because our movement was regulated. So presently, Africans can travel anywhere. So that's where they need.
Okay, okay, Bob.
Yes.
Thank you. I think that was covered even in the last panel. Yes, educating the consumer is quite key, right? But you can answer for yourself as the financial sector. Okay, last word, and then you'll have the last word. Yes.
I just wanted to say, JJ, because we are talking about the importance of research as well as the body of knowledge. For me, research is the bedrock that anchors policies and frameworks. And if done properly, it will then achieve the envisaged results.
Yeah.
And within this sector, we are yet to experience the contribution of the body of knowledge to translate into transformation imperatives.
Yeah.
So I'm challenging the prof
Yeah.
after the session that we sit down and we begin to build that foundational knowledge that they're talking about. Because for you to have an upscaled capacity in terms of management control, you need people to be capacitated so that you create stability within the sector itself. So it's a challenge that I'm living with the people who pursue the body of knowledge to ensure that it's a key contributor to the transformation of the sector. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you. Your last word?
Thanks so much. So just on the discussion that's been happening, I just want to say again, if the majority of our big companies in South Africa are level 1 rated and we still feel the sector is not transformed, we need to have a broader discussion on what we want transformation in the financial sector to mean. And just then in response to the colleague who raised the issue of consumer education, the FSCA does have a consumer education department. We've been lobbying the Department of Basic Education for years to try and include financial literacy into the curriculum more formally. And it's efforts that we will continue. We do our level best at university level, at school level to roll out our own consumer education programs, but obviously we're limited in terms of resources.
I hear you. The level is not the issue because people group to get to the level. People even hire a person in a corner to say, just make us level 1. The issue is if you put the microscope on that company in all layers of transformation, their attitude, their philosophy to impact on society, etc. Can it match their so-called level 1? And I'm saying that in some institutions, in some instances, it doesn't, right? So it's not enough to say, oh, I'm level 1. We need to be able to interrogate that more.
So, and I think that's what we're wanting to do is have that microscope and be able to have these informed.
TVET College, I agree with you. And that's why recognition of prior learning is so important. So I'm going to again talk about the fit and proper requirements. There is an RPL mechanism in the fit and proper requirements already, but only for class of business. So class of business is your generic product knowledge. What is an RA? What's a collective investment scheme? If your learning outcomes and your qualification maps to those learning outcomes, your FSP can say you meet the requirements, exams as well. Because some of the qualifications, if you look at the RE exams, especially RE5, I don't want to talk about RE1, individuals has to write it. But RE5 for the representatives, a lot of your qualifications, it already maps the learning outcomes for the RE exam. So recognition of prior learning is a fundamental education requirement.
Wonderful.
In closing, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your input. Let's please give the panel a round of applause.
Thank you.
CEO, please come and give the panels their gifts. Please come here and take a picture with the CEO and collect your gift. Please, can panel number 4 please come? As we raise towards 5 o'clock.
I'm very glad you're here. I'm very glad you're here.
Would you wait for me? Thank you. JJ, don't take it personally. I'm going to have to get off on time.
Yes.
Whether you're done or not,
You're
I am
running for your
leaving.
flight.
Yes,
Yeah,
whether you're done or not.
How are you getting to the airport? Are you using
Gautrain, yes. Whether you're done or not, I'm getting off the stage.
What time is your flight?
I need to be boarding at 20 to 6.
Okay. I'll be following you very fast.
Thank you.
Okay, let's welcome our panel number 4, Professor Maurice Mutombeni, who I will have to excuse very fast to catch a flight, and I'll be following you, Prof, because I also have to catch a flight to Cape Town. And then Miss Alicia Khosen, right, as well as Miss Tokozile Mahlangu. Thank you so much for honoring us in terms of this particular panel. We really now talking about insurance landscape in South Africa. You know, as a building block to sustain growth and excellence in the sector. It links to what we discussed in the previous panel, one way or another, because how do we cultivate that excellence? Because in the first place, people are thinking, oh, no, I've missed you. Sorry. According to my program, there are only 3. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Alamain Nene from Stellar Consulting.
Thank you. Prof, let me start with you.
Okay.
Excellence. How do we cultivate that level of excellence in the insurance industry? Because maybe this topic was there because there's in insurance, selling of insurances. Maybe there's been a lot of cut and paste where people think, all right, I'm going to scratch my head. What should I do? I'm going to go and sell insurance. And they think that the barriers to entry have been lowered. Maybe it's wrong perception, but weigh in on that. How do we cultivate excellence in this particular industry?
In my view, I don't know if the mic is on. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's on. We can hear you, Prof.
Good afternoon, everyone. In my view, this is a bit of an unfortunate question because, as indicated earlier, in my view, the insurance industry has been cultivating excellence and professionalism for quite some time. In fact, it would not be possible to have an insurance industry if it was not cultivating excellence. It is such a complex industry. to succeed in for the industry as a whole. And I'm not even talking about for the human beings.
Yeah.
Because what is insurance? It's about risk management. And so you need to understand which risks you want to assume, which risks you want to pass on, how you price those risks. And all of that requires a great deal of competence and complexity. And I think some of the earlier discussion, we were missing out on that factor. And it's not a trade-off between supporting transformation at the expense of whatever. It's about, regardless of where you stand, it is about the job that needs to get done. I joined the insurance industry in 1990. And when I joined the insurance industry, sorry, to be fair, in 1991, 17th of June, 1991. When I joined the insurance industry on the 17th of June, and for the longest time, the first 10 years, people were selling insurance on the back of a matchbox.
Yes.
That was an unprofessional industry, right? And in fact, much of the losses that did come about in the insurance industry was because there was a disconnect between the salespeople in the front and the risk management capability at the back. The incentives were wrong. Over time, the incentives have been aligned and the industry has been professionalized, kicking and screaming, initially with the Financial Services Board, later Financial Sector Conduct Authority, and even later the Prudential Authority. And so the industry is professionalizing and has been doing it for quite some time. For me, the challenge is, I think we are still professionalizing looking backward through the rearview mirror. So if I look at some of the statistics that were shown, those would be what you'd describe as descriptive statistics. Descriptive as in it's describing the body of knowledge as it already has taken place. Where we need to move forward, and some of the invitation was being put forward to us, is that we need to start thinking about predictive statistics, prescriptive statistics. Where does AI come into this conversation? And how do you prepare all of these graduates from VERS that can't find a job? I'm just having fun with you, Professor, wherever you're sitting. How do you prepare them with the right skill set? So for me, I think the challenge is not about hiring people, making sure that Black people are being hired, et cetera, but it's about we need to solve the structure of the economy by having the right kind of skill set. And I'm challenging all the CETAs to say, in all of your CETA programs, look at the curriculum to make sure that the curriculum in your CETA program is targeting future roles, future opportunities, and future challenges that we are being faced with. We don't live in an island called South Africa. We live in a globally connected world and a highly competitive world. And we need to understand that our skills need to compete with Chinese skills, they need to compete with Taiwanese skills, they need to compete with Brazilian skills, they need to compete with Spanish skills. Those people are very hungry. We need to be hungry for the right kind of knowledge, and we need to be funding the right kind of knowledge. We don't have a shortage of capital or the shortage of money to fund education. I think we are not making the right choices, investing for the future. Let me stop there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I do have a one. Is it working? Yeah, go ahead. 100% agree with that comment, and I think from an industry perspective, specifically because it's such a global world, what the added challenge to us is, if we just look at the energy prices as a quick example, apart from all these statistics on the large losses that our country has faced over the last year, if we just look at the energy prices, if one look at the complexity of the policy language exclusions that our industries face, just by throwing it into the environment and say, there, Mr. Broker, you go and explain this exclusion to your client. I think what's amplified the need for professionals in our industry is the fact that the market is where it is. the fact that it's changing at a pace that I don't think that we can actually keep trade with. So from a global perspective and from a local perspective, we are faced with challenges. I do agree it's somewhat reactive because we now have to deal with all of these things that's happened and how do we address it from a client perspective going forward. So I think the challenge for us is two-faced. How do we develop professionals that can sit in front of a client, looking at reactively what's happened to the industry, putting it into context about explaining why their premiums go the way they do, but also how do we as professionals think about the future? How do we think about how do we develop our youngsters coming through to be able to sit in front of a client, to act as both advisor of what is happening in their business currently and also to try and advise them what is going to happen in business in the next year or two. So I think the challenge is twofold, and it's really been depicted twofold, and it's really been depicted by what has happened. If we look at the Ukraine war, if we look at what's happened with the reinsurance market renewals 1 January this year, it was the worst renewal the market has ever seen. If we look then at what's happened from a weather-related perspective just recently and also the floods we've experienced in KwaZulu-Natal, all of those things are actually putting so much pressure on the workforce to the extent that they just need to be able to cope with what's happening now. Also, how do we learn about taking it to a client and have a conversation about what do we do?
Can I interrupt there and ask, do you think there's enough mentoring in the industry then to sustain a level of
Definitely not.
excellence?
And I get
Yeah.
why it's not happening. I do. Everybody is with the best will in the world trying to mentor. If you have a day job and you also have somebody to mentor, to take with you along, it's difficult. I think one needs to think about how you can dedicate resources to just mentor. I think there was a comment made about people in the industry over 55
But
previously.
shouldn't it be a culture, an
Absolutely.
organization where there are new entrants coming in? Surely mentoring should be a part of making sure that you create a new generation of people who could then be to take the industry
Absolutely.
forward.
I think on paper, that is the fact.
On
If
paper.
you look at mentoring, everybody's mentoring programs, but does it really happen? I mean, when I started very much the same way 30 years ago, I was a bag carrier. I went with my boss everywhere. I listened. For
Yeah,
many
that's
meetings, I
mentoring,
wasn't
yeah.
allowed to open my mouth because I was a liability.
Okay.
But that's how mentoring should happen.
What
and
has stopped that? What has stopped
I
that?
think that the fact that we all have less resources, less people to do more, and that's taking people's focus off the fact
Right.
that they need to mentor.
Okay, thank you. You want to come back to the mentoring? Yeah.
Again, this is me provoking thinking differently.
Yeah.
There's like an incremental growth approach to the world, where a human being must mentor another human being, and there's then limitations about how much time you have available to mentor. And yet the vast majority of workers are digital natives.
Yeah.
You don't need to think in incremental growth. You can think in scale. There's AI tools, apps that are available to do coaching and mentoring at scale. And one of the positive things of using AI tools to do coaching and mentoring is it removes one of the biggest barriers to people who struggle with mentoring and coaching, which is judgment. Because a human being judges you, whether you like it or not, the way you look, the shoes you're wearing, the way you tie your tie, whatever. AI doesn't know that. It asks you questions. It engages you.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, again, I'm saying to the industry, there's so much that is available out there that we could be thinking about utilizing to shift the opportunity set and to really think about, I'm so loath to use that word transform, but how you transform the entire psychology of people, transform how people see themselves and the
Introduce a new
opportunities that are
culture
available.
of how mentoring should mean the approaching 22nd century. Okay. can you weigh in on this issue about mentoring?
Yeah, sure.
And link it to excellence. How can that be part of ensuring that we keep the excellence that the prof talked about?
So let me kick off by saying mentoring is not an event.
It's not?
It's not an event.
Not an event,
Yeah,
okay.
and I think from my experience, I've seen that we treat mentoring as an event. It's a 12 months thing that we're going to do. I'll mentor you into this, and it's a lifetime thing. And to concur with the colleagues here, many years ago when we joined the industry, there was an intentional approach into mentoring. There was an intentional approach into getting a person to understand the technical part of insurance. And I think Bumi mentioned that at the beginning. So we all had to go through technical insurance training. I mean, we came into the industry with different degrees, different fields, and we just got attracted to the industry, or opportunities were presented to us, but we did not have the insurance know-how. And there was an intentional element of teaching us insurance. And that's what we need to go back to. And that teaching doesn't stop. It's not going to be, okay, this month I'm spending time with you. It's a journey. Maybe at the beginning, the 12 months or 6 months can happen to entrench the foundations. Thereafter, you always have to have somebody that you can call on different areas of insurance.
You buy the AI story that he was talking about, or you think it's a mass production for mentoring?
I have a slightly different view.
Yeah.
I think that's a room for a human being. And there is certain things that AI can teach you. Yes, it will give you some information, but there is a need for a human intervention, a person who can hold your hand and talk to you about the basics of your dress code for work, for example. AI ain't gonna tell you that, or will tell it to you, but it won't show it to you. There's certain what has now become hard skills that AI will not be able to teach you. And there's room. So the two can be married.
So you think they can coexist.
They can coexist,
those two
improve
tracks,
in the excellence. And it's all work in progress. Excellence is not going to be achieved and then we stop there, because the landscapes keeps changing. I mean, there's embedded insurance now that's emerging. There's the use of the metaverse methodologies that's changed. All that requires somebody to keep teaching, somebody to keep learning, somebody to be open to the latest trend and the different
Do you think
things happening.
excellence is pitted against transformation unfairly? And maybe that shows in the slowness of transformation itself, because there seems to be a barrier, an attitude that doesn't see transformation as a business imperative, that would propel the business if you actually transformed.
No, I don't think so. And my view is that we also have to be intentional about transformation. We need to stop looking at transformation as color, as gender. We need to transform in many other ways beyond the racial, beyond the gender. We need to transform how we think. Gender. We need to transform how we think. We need to transform how we do business. In that way, we're going to stop looking at each other from a racial perspective or a gender perspective or a preference. We all deserve those opportunities. Those opportunities will make a difference to all of us. We need women in boardrooms as much as we need a different race in the board. We need that diversity to be able to improve the excellence of the industry. And those are the changes in the landscape that are happening that we have to embrace quite quickly.
And finally, if I move to the last panel, do you believe that the industry is embracing that or not? The fact that we are busy haggling over what should transformation mean, because the fact that we are busy haggling over what should transformation mean, should it raise, whatever, should that even be the issue? The reality is that even on those two categories, there's no change, especially in this financial sector broadly. How can we abandon those two and hope that we'll fudge them with the rest of the other transformation elements, digital, etc., which are important? Do you think that there is a need to dissect that conversation more, or are we on the right path already, having figured it out as the industry?
There is a lot happening. I think our challenge is that it's not done as a collective. So everyone's doing pockets. Then the impact isn't experienced or seen. If we were to pull together and do it as a collective, we would achieve much more. We all just need to be intentional about it. And I think all companies are, but it's in a small scale. Each company is doing its own thing. We ain't gonna see the impact until we pull together and have a common goal and deliver on that common goal jointly. Then we will see it.
I'm not sure how we're gonna do that, but can you pick up on that, on what she's saying? How can we do exactly what she's suggesting? Because it looks like everybody just wants to survive in their corner and bothering them if you want too many bang things, bring everybody together to do things. Your view?
Sure, thank you. So I think one of the key, critical things is if you look at the way that we are approaching transformation or any other change. Yes, we're doing it, in silos, and everybody wants to champion their own thing, and there's no collective agreement. But I think one of the things that we need to realize, particularly when it comes to the point of excellence, is that when you consider what excellence is, there has to be an agreement of the standard of excellence first. Because if we then understand,
are you saying we don't now? Because there must still be an agreement on what excellence should be. We don't have right now.
We do have, but we are not on the same page. So therefore we don't agree. So that's why there's always pushback of what then it should be. So that's why even if you can legislate or maybe bring in something to the fore, there'll always be pushback because we don't necessarily eye to eye in that regard. So if you then look, for instance, if you consider maybe, as we're saying, excellence, firstly, it is looking in terms of what then is the expectation.
Yeah.
But also, if you look at what the expectation is, that means you are able to then consider even your customers. You consider the industry, you consider the impact that you're trying to be making. But at the same time, also being able to bring in the educational element that has to come with why certain things have to happen certain way. Okay. When we have that agreement, so for instance, you look at the term, we then start to perform. Usually I like to look at the word performance as a grammatical construct of two words. It is, you act as activity perform. So there's a form that we have to both agree to, and then you engage in activity per that form. Therefore, that constitutes true excellence because we've agreed. But that means that I have a responsibility, number one, to be listening to you and what your needs are. But secondly, I also have a responsibility to be able to teach you as well, so that we're able then agree on our performance in order to be able to accelerate our excellence in that regard.
Sure, okay. On colloquium there, about what performance should mean, I find that quite interesting. The last word, let me come to you, Prof, for it before I go to the audience.
Transformation.
You avoided it.
No, I'll go for it. So
Okay.
let me throw some interesting thoughts at you.
Yeah.
Do you by any chance know how much it costs to actually start an insurance company and be profitable? Just guess.
I'm just billions.
No, it's not billions, but it is a minimum. It is at least R1 billion over at least
billions.
No, it's not billions, but it is a minimum. It is at least R1 billion over at least 10 years before you make a profit. So you must be willing to start with R1 billion that you burn through over 10 years before you make a profit.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a concept in insurance called embedded value. Right? It is a concept that people use to see how successful your insurance company is. In that period, you're generating embedded value. Embedded value is a future chaos, discounted today, net, and you make lots of assumptions around that. Here's the thing, you can't buy bread with embedded value, right? It's not real money. It's funny money in insurance, or if you wish, like monopoly money in insurance. Right? Eventually, it's real money, but after your executive lifetime, when the next CEO takes over, they convert it from embedded value to profit. So when you're thinking about then wishing to solve the transformation problem, you need to give a few black people R1 billion each and walk away for 10 years, and hopefully they don't steal it. Because guys, let's be fair. We've really messed up. We have messed up. Right? Municipalities that my fellow professor was talking about, right? So you have to say, I have found a few honest blacks, I'm going to give them each R1 billion, go start a few insurance companies. That is the first kind of, I just would like that to sink. That's one set of problems you may want to solve. Alternative, you could say there are bigger problems in this country than BEE for rich people. There is 55% youth unemployment. How about we solve that problem first? It's a choice. You're making choices, right? You're not saying which one is better. You make choices. This conversation we're having, I had it in 2000 at various conferences.
2000.
In the year 2000, I had every other year at various conferences, 2005.
Nothing happened.
I'm just saying, guys, Einstein tells us, like at some point you must give up on certain problems and saying, these are not really solvable, all right? Maybe solve other things, all right? That are solvable, otherwise you're gonna have a headache. So I'm saying to you, clearly we're not solving this one. After 30 odd years, long conversations, very expensive conferences, can we solve something else? This is, and I'm being provocative here. Solve, because the trade unions have given up on BE because they don't benefit from the BE, they benefit from jobs. So solve the joblessness problem, right? And solve it ethically, solve it properly, have service delivery issues. You know what happens when you solve that? Insurance claims reduce, other opportunities occur. I'm challenging you and others who are advocating transformation, say, choose where you want to transform. Because let me tell you, South Africa has lots of problems. Dude, we don't have a shortage of problems. We have a shortage of solutions. You decide which problem you want to fall in love with. And I think for me, that would be the first leadership choice that we make. And the first time we can start really shifting the needle.
You are not too far from what was said. It's an industry. You remember there's some program called the industrialization program. They said they'll get 100 industrialists.
No, you see, that's rich people wanting to get more rich. I am saying to you, we are all, if we are rich people here, the masses are going to eat us for breakfast, lunch, and supper if we don't solve the problems that are important to the masses. That is the real transformation challenge, not what is happening in the room.
No, wonderful. That's a full dialogue on its own. Especially there is 20 years of it's time we have those hard discussions about why this thing has failed and why the years will be the same if we don't do anything different. Can you please write panel number 4? And I don't think you passed on your panel number 3. Ne? Please pass it on at the same time. Panel number 4, excellence. What can we do? One thing we can do to cultivate excellence in the industry. Please write that down. Give me one idea. And then I'm going to take only 4 comments, 2 this side and 2 the other side, to us to bring this to a close. Any comment this side? You want to comment? Is there a comment somewhere this side? All right. Please comment briefly for me.
I just want to comment about mentoring before we can even transform.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be racial about it. White people mentored a lot of white people. I'm not sure if I can say that about black people. If at all I were to ask people here in the room, how many people did you mentor in the past 5 years?
You'll be disappointed.
And most people here are holding high positions.
Yeah.
So it means if at all you mentored somebody 5 years back, that person, one or the other, must be having the knowledge, and must be growing and must be excelling.
Yeah.
Then you can say you are a mentor.
Yeah.
We are not doing it. We are failing the very same 55% who are not employed. Please, let's go and mentor few.
Yeah.
And thanks maybe to groups like sitters like Inseta that is trying to say some of the youth.
Wonderful.
I'm sitting with my mentor here, and I can proudly say that I've been mentoring him for 5 years. I am not working with him, and today I'm still benefiting from mentoring him.
Oh, wonderful.
Let's do
I
that
think
more.
that's a good idea. It starts from charity begins at the home. Each of us must ask ourselves, if we are shouting that government is not doing this or that, what are we doing? In between having a blue label, maybe some of that money you can assist somebody to study at UNISA.
I think, let me respond to that question very quickly. I think there's perception and there's reality. And sometimes I think we get stuck in the way we see the world. And we fail to see that the world has moved. As I say, I've been in this industry since 1986. So Sistokoz is the CEO of the company, of the Insurance Institute of South Africa. Annually, they host a conference at Sun City in winter, because that's when Sun City is affordable. Every year. Every year, she's opened bookings for next year. And what you will see in that conference, you can start seeing the shift in transformation. There are more Black executives in this industry than any other time before. So I was sitting at the table, and there were at least 10 Black CEOs, not Black CEOs, not executives, running insurance companies. And what gave me hope as I get towards retirement, and Sistoko and I have had this conversation a number of years, is that, and Sistoko and I have had this conversation a number of years, is that those people, when they join, they know what their mandate is. They know that they have to mentor. They know that they have to transform. They know that they have to open a door for the other. So what you will see in various insurance companies is that there has been transformation. There has been competent Black executives coming through. I mean, I want to give Inseta as an example because it's a state-owned entity. All the executives, they are Black. In fact, I just want to have one white guy. Just
for that, just for control.
Yeah, just so you get what I'm saying. And
You can't find white.
no, they worry about political interference. When I come in, but let's go back to what Professor Tombe, the prof was saying, is that you look, for instance, make an example with Standard Bank. How many of us think Standard Bank is a Black bank? How many of us think Standard Bank? Do we think Standard Bank is Black? You see? No, that's not true. No, the biggest institutional investor in Standard Bank is Black. Sakima Chuma led that consortium. All right? The PIC is actually the biggest, and then it's the Black guys, then it's the Chinese. More than 70% of Standard Bank's board is Black. Chairman is Black. The chairman of Nedbank is Black. The chairman of, I don't know actually. Yeah, all right, yeah, he's Black. Yeah, ex-Alexander Forbes guy. So, we've got all these good things that are happening, and we fail to recognize them. And all I'm saying is that let's start solving the real issues. Let's start saying, when those Black people get there, do they understand what is the mandate? Beyond autism, how do you make the organization relevant and impactful to society? So, but I think now we're really getting stuck. I'm not an apologist for, I've tried to start a Black-owned insurance company twice. And yeah.
It was not successful.
Well, I ended up selling and got rich. But that's another realization. I mean, I was saying to the chair here, how many of you remember Knowledge? Whom was it sold to? Do you know? Doctor, it was sold, actually the president was still with Dr. Motlana. Yes. So Metropolitan was at some stage in black hands. And then at an appropriate time when the embedded value was at a certain value, they sold it to Momentum. Yeah. African. That's okay. That's okay. I mean, African, how many of you know African Life? It was sold to Salam. So what I'm trying to say is that it's a very complex situation, but there are movements, and I was happy with the CEO of the Transformation Council, the way she's saying we should approach and revisit how we look at the targets and so on. I'm not saying the journey is not, but actually, right, you look at this room, you look at the number of black professors. I mean, I said there are only 2 or 3. I'm standing next to one. There is another one. There's black professors, and they're holding positions of power. The question is, how do we finance power and make it reality? Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. Truly, you have summarized the day. Truly, you have summarized the day. You've truly summarized the day for me. I'm going to take one more comment and then I'll go back.
That was talking about mentorship.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I mentor people. You wanted to know, I do it. Without the CETAs, without anyone, it's a heart position.
Yeah.
So when you want to transfer skills, when you want to transfer practicalities to someone, whether young, over 35 or so, you really have to put your heart and soul in it. Passion, that drive, that intensity, nobody can give you that. It needs to be built from within. And if you do that, and there's so many people here, 3 people that you want to mentor, don't wait for the CETAs. If the CETA is there, great, it's a bonus. But you go and you do it yourself, because I'm doing it in my capacity.
Please give me a round of applause. I think it's a wonderful note, really, to round it off. Parting shots for my panel, please. Mr. with you.
I'll close off by just going back to the insurance landscape. There are a lot of changes that the insurance industry needs to embrace. The automation is one. Is the metaverse that we are not talking about as much as we should, and that's going to bring a lot of change in how we engage with customers and could potentially bring change in the claims experience. There is a need for us to work on the talent we have. I'm in skills development, so I've got a passion for talent management. There is talents we need to intentionally develop now so that we're for the future. And if we miss that opportunity now, we're going to work on a reactive approach yet again. So I urge each and every leader to intentionally look at emerging trends in insurance and be ready for those. There is embedded insurance that's also emerging and coming out. And there are service providers that are not traditional insurance providers. To give you an example, there is a cleaning company that is now attaching insurance into their service. That's another way. It's innovative, and those are the trends that are coming up, and that's the landscape we're going to be operating in. We as leaders need to be ready for that.
Thank you so much. Truly a wonderful note to end it on. Your parting shot?
Maybe just 2 last comments from me. I think I'll quote a former ESCOM COO, who they are facing the same challenges, the skill shortage massively within that organization. And I think his comment as always was, how do you get 20 years of experience? You work for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I think my last comment is that each and every one of us in this industry has a responsibility to make sure that each and every one of us in this industry has a responsibility to make sure that the transformation and the excellence happens beneath you. Excellence happens beneath you.
Who's the COO you're talking about? Is the one who
Mr. Jan Weber, back and resigned, is now gone.
I don't know whether that's a good example of skills development. Okay, anyway. Yeah, your parting shot.
Thank you. So is that, the insurance industry is dynamic,
Yeah.
but it's also evolving.
Yes.
And so it most we always need to focus on what else and what is out there.
Yes.
In most cases, we engage, I mean, as a management consultant, I get to work with various organizations who then, have an R&D component.
Yeah.
Organizations who then, have an R&D component.
Yeah.
But most times it ends on the R, which is the research.
And no
The D,
development.
we don't go
Yeah.
there.
Translating that research to development is quite key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll just keep talking and nothing will change.
And
So we need to
generating
focus
all
on
these
that.
thick documents and no action. Prof, you could as wait.
Can I, is mic on? It wasn't
Yes,
on
your
earlier.
mic is on.
So I just want to end with a few provocations. One, we're talking to the formal insurance industry. And they want to talk at the informal insurance industry and educate them. Just want to say, let's be very cautious. Poor people are not stupid people, all right? Poor people have been managing risk, and they actually manage more complex risk every day, and they think in insurance mindset. They're only poor in money. They're not poor in ideas, all right? So when we as a industry think about how to grow our market, let us go and learn about how they think about risk management and see to what extent we can collaborate and partner with sectors that are not insured by the formal sector. But don't assume that these people don't know what they're doing. That's the first provocation I would like the sector to think about. The second provocation is the sector has a deep skills shortage in very specific areas, but not all is lost. All these graduates that don't have jobs, they are an opportunity for us to retrain them in a much more targeted way into those very specific areas where the sector is very low on skills. So I invite CETAs to kind of think strategically about how do we not only target the unemployed or the undereducated, but go and target those educated but unemployed graduates and really reach in them, because they can lift up a lot more people. And finally, now this is where it's a good thing I'm running. Because we've got a skills shortage, how we can make up for some of the 20 gap is let us really go and have some deep conversations with the Department of Home Affairs to give skilled visas at pace for people that are highly talented from outside of South Africa, at pace for people that are highly talented from outside of South Africa. Right? Let me shock you, we've just lost Exim Bank, an Indian bank.
Yeah.
All right? They're closing down. They had given out $2 billion loans to date. They wanted to give more because Home Affairs did not want to give this Indian CEO. Exim Bank is a state bank of India, right? It's owned by the state. The Indian government saying, we'll give all the jobs to blacks in South Africa, but we just want our CEO to be Indian because it's our money.
Yeah.
Home Affairs says, no, thank you.
They refused.
They refused. What that means is 1,000 jobs are gone. No more funding from Exim Bank to South Africa. They're moving to Kenya. Right? So just think about, some of the stuff is not politically correct.
Yeah.
But I'm just challenging us to say we have complex problems here. And these problems need courage in addressing them.
All right.
Some provocations for you to think about.
The prof and the rest of the panel. Yes, please, can you come and stand, CEO? Please thank your panel. Then we are. Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your participation. Let's give a round of applause to all the four panelists. It's clear from the conversations today that there is a lot of work that still needs to be done in shaping the insurance industry and the whole issue of empowering each other as part of that industry, number one. Number two, and someone mentioned it earlier, it didn't come out in the public arena, that we need to hone our advocacy. Right? In other words, the things that you're talking about here, that are within your capacity to implement as this industry. But they will not happen if there is no overall advocacy for change to happen. Change will never happen on its own, right? And I like what the prof said earlier on, to say we need to choose what we are going to do, right? But you may find that we don't choose anything at all. So in other words, we come to a conference like this, a colloquium like this, and I'm glad that you have initiated something of this nature. But the trick is whether or not you are going to build on it. Please pass on the piece of paper. Well, before I forget, pass on all the pieces of paper and collect those. This will help the finalization of the final report to see what are the ideas. And I am challenging CETA to say, and I'm not sure how you're taking this forward, but maybe that can process what came out of today and say, if you look at the last panel, we talk about excellence. If you solve that, all the other things that you talked about in all the other panels will solve themselves. Because a part of the problem is where people just do the bare minimum, wherever they are, whether they are selling insurance, etc. If each of us did excellently what they are meant to do, right, then excellence will prevail. We won't have a discussion that says, no, let's define excellence. It's too late in the day to be trying to define excellence. Now we should be doing excellent things. Not saying, oh, let's crash. No, that's actually not excellence. I mean, I don't know. I don't know whether that is even a debate. If you give people an exam and somebody gets 30, it's not excellent, right? Yet there's a debate now that says kids who get 33% must pass. Pass where? Must pass. No. That pass. They are going to clock the system. Can they please go? But I want to go pay. They'll be. But let somebody else, deal with them somewhere else. Or now we are done. 33, go. No, that's not excellent. It's not, you don't even define that. That's not excellent. That's anti-excellence by itself, right? So I believe that this last panel really was put correctly at the end to say, yes, we have discussed everything else, but can we just be excellent in what we are doing? Secondly, research is fantastic, research shares are great, etc. Can we, through the universities at least that are involved in this program, just isolate 2 or 3 PhDs or master thesis, MBA thesis or whatever, that can be used to change this industry? I'm sure there are there somewhere. You'll be surprised if you just did a search, in these days libraries are online, and just did a search on PhDs on insurance. You're shocked. I'm sure they'll be equal to the number of people sitting here. The ones that have just been awarded by universities over the last 20 years alone. And in those theses, all the solutions you're talking about are already there. So people spend 4 years researching, interviewing some of you, and so on, to come up with those PhDs. The trouble is nobody is doing anything about them. Those PhDs are waiting for something called literature review. So it means the next person who wants to research, they'll find it. Hey, so and so wrote about this. What good things? Oh, but there's a gap here. Let me write another PhD. And I'm challenging the research chairs, whoever they may be, that let's go and look for the body of work already there in our universities, on our shelves, etc., and see whether we could have another colloquium just looking at stuff that's already there, that people have already been awarded. Somebody yesterday at the conference I was talking of universities, yes, in Cape Town, was telling me that there's probably more than 3,000 postdocs. Now, I'm not even talking about PhD. Now, these ones have done the PhD and they want to do more. So they're doing postdocs, but those postdocs, you understand? And I'm not saying that biblical studies and some of us with media are able to. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, excellent colloquium, but its excellence tested in translating that research body of work. Let's go and select a few PhDs, few postdocs, few MBA master's theses on insurance. You will be shocked what you're going to find. And if we can identify those things and then call those people, be shocked what you're going to find. And if we can identify those things and then call those people, because also the interesting thing is people write a PhD and then they're also exhausted after 5 years. They don't implement what they said themselves. They say, hey, this was too tough. Can I just go and find a job somewhere and just God, thank you. I've completed it. It's in the library now. We have to call those people and say, hey man, what did you mean here? We can see that this is a good idea. Right? So I'm really calling for action, CEO. I'm calling for action, CEO. I'm calling for translate this research, outcomes, discussions from here into a few things that can solve problems that we have identified here. There was a big discussion about problems that we have identified here. There was a big discussion about transformation. We need a full colloquium on that alone. I'm sorry. We have to dissect it, because I don't like the idea that we can take a cut about it. We got to dissect it and say, yes, what has been successful. I liked what was said here about some of the success factors that we may not see, because maybe in a context of 64 million people, 55 million people, or 55% of them living in poverty, youth being unemployed, we can't see those. We see them as drops in the ocean. But you've got to start somewhere. A drop in the ocean. But you've got to start somewhere. A journey of 1,000, whatever, you know the phrase. It starts with one step. You can't suddenly be there in front. You got to start somewhere. So thank you very much for your participation. Congratulations once again, CEO and your team, for putting this together. I hope it's not the last time. By the way, as I was saying to the CEO, there are insurance people in KZN and PE, Gqeberha now, and Cape Town, etc. So the colloquium next time has to be somewhere else. Can we do one in Northwest where I come from? I'll be happy to host it for free if you do it in the Northwest. In Madibeng, yeah. I think they need a full colloquium there. Okay. So please, congratulations, and everyone else for staying up to so late in the day. Really thank you, and I do travel safely. Thank you very much for your attention. Let me give over to you, back to the CEO. Vote of thanks. Who's doing the vote? Is the chairperson? Please, can you come through? And I'm done now. You can thank everybody and dismiss the gathering.
Thank you, Program Director. Somebody had to thank you, which is the only reason why I'm here. Otherwise, who was going to thank you? But I'm standing here quite proud, ladies and gentlemen, to be closing off the first Inseta research colloquium, and I am speaking on behalf of the board of directors of Inseta, as well as the CEO and the entire management team, that this will not be the first. It's the first of an annual series of research colloquiums. So we were quite proud to conclude this other successful event. We are immensely grateful to you, Prof. JJ Tabani. Our esteemed speakers and panelists, I thought the panels were quite insightful and deep in the contribution of their knowledge right across since the morning. We would like to thank the chairperson of the board, Mr. Ihle Ngubane, and the entire set of the members of their board. Siyabonga. Mr. Ngubane. We really thank you for your direction and the strategic support. We would really like to, okay, we would, of course, like to, would like to really thank our CEO for the, I think, visionary leadership. Siyabonga Cwa Bekazela, Mr. Mkize, who has really been pushing for this over the last 2.5 years. Has really wanted us to be able to meet here and go through the content, the rich content that we went through today. The CEO, and I don't know whether we did announce what kind of award she did, but maybe let me just share quickly. She was awarded the Legends of Implement Award for her trailblazing work on setting up the Insurance Sector Student Fund, which is another SETA first. So that is the award that I think we spoke about in passing a little bit earlier. We are really grateful to the department which we report to, of course, and which we do the work that we do on its behalf, led by the over there. Thank you, DG, for leading your team and being through the entire day, the entire session with us. We really appreciate that, DG. We must also thank our sponsors who really shared the logistical issues in terms of cost and so on for the event. It is through your collaboration that we're able to deliver an event of this magnitude. So thank you particularly to the CTO, to the CEO of the Wholesale and Retail sector, Mr. Mkonazi Siyabonga Molase. We also thank the CEO of Facet, Ms. Ayanda Mafuleka, and the amazing and talented Facet Choir that gave us quite a good rendition of the songs that they give. Took us back to some of our choir days. So yeah, we really thank those partners there. We really believe that as we are committing to, yeah, we really thank those partners there. We really believe that as we are committing to proceed with this, that you will come with us, CEO, as we move forward. I think we must also extend our appreciation to the leadership of the Bakhatla Bakhafela in Bakhatla Bakhafela in the Platinum Province, who we've also partnered with on a program which we believe will continue to foster transformation, Prof. Tabani, and hopefully in the next few years we'll be able to share that particular progress as part of those steps that we want to achieve. To Team Inseta, thank you so much to all of you. You're scattered all over the room. Some are standing at the back. Thank you for the job well done. I'm sure I'm not exaggerating when I say it's a job well done. I think we especially thank you to Ms. Lynn Mafeking, who's standing at the back in the royal blue dress, in the office of the CEO for really driving this event. Many of you that are seated here, or those that may not be here, would have dealt with her